The spring wind rushed through the narrow streets of the city, swirling up dust and the golden leaves of the past autumn. The central square shimmered under the soft rays of the sun, and among the countless shops, one stood out, a boutique. A jewelry store renowned for its sophistication and exclusivity. The footballer stepped through its doors, leaving the hustle and bustle of the streets behind. His posture was confident but not arrogant. Dark glasses concealed his gaze, and though he moved slowly, his gestures bore the precision of speed honed on the field. Inside, silence reigned. Only the faint hum of surveillance cameras disturbed the peace. The walls, adorned with dark wood, created an atmosphere of restrained luxury, while the showcases gleamed as if inviting patrons into their world of treasures. He did not hurry. His eyes glided over the jewelry, from diamond necklaces to delicate rings, but his true captivation arose when his gaze fell upon a massive golden bracelet. Its design was unique, an intricate lace of thin lines interwoven to form symbols that seemed oddly familiar. He leaned closer to examine the engravings. "Do not touch that." A voice, sharp and filled with unease, shattered the silence. The footballer raised his head. Before him stood a shop assistant, a woman in her 30s, wearing a strict uniform. Her arms were crossed, and her gaze radiated unmistakable suspicion. "Excuse me." His voice sounded calm, devoid of any hint of aggression. The woman didn't avert her eyes. Her stance was defensive, as if she anticipated conflict. "This jewelry is unique. No one is allowed to touch it without the manager's permission." He straightened slowly. He didn't like her tone, but he knew arguing would be pointless. Then, something changed in her expression. She stepped back, scrutinizing his face. You're that footballer." Her voice softened, and the tension of the moment dissolved. The footballer remained silent. He was used to being recognized. The woman tried to say something else, but he only offered a faint smile. "The bracelet is truly fascinating. But it's not the jewelry that defines a person, is it?" He left the store, feeling a strange sense of unease. That bracelet reminded him of something from his past. Meanwhile, the shop assistant stood motionless, watching his silhouette through the glass, reflecting on his words. The gentle sound of footsteps disrupted the silence of the store. The shop assistant stood by the display case, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Her mind swirled with memories not just of the recent scene but of her own past. She recalled her first job, a small jewelry shop on the outskirts of the city, where she had learned to recognize the true value of jewelry. Back then, she believed that every piece told a story, that jewelry wasn't merely metal and gemstones, but rather memories, emotions, and symbols imbued with meaning. But over the years her perspective had shifted. Working at a high-end boutique taught her something different, that first impressions often determined everything. She knew that the customers here varied greatly, and some merely wanted to test the boundaries of what was allowed. So, when he walked and dressed simply, unaccompanied, her instincts kicked in automatically. She judged quickly, as she had learned to do over the years. But now, as he left, she was gripped by a strange feeling, as if she had made a mistake. The bracelet still shimmered under the lights, and her gaze returned to it. Something about its engraving stirred her curiosity. She leaned closer, scanning the symbols with her eyes, and suddenly, her heart skipped a beat. She had seen that pattern before, not in the store, not in a catalog, but in the past, in memories long forgotten. The mystery was closer than she had imagined. Her fingers brushed against the glass that separated the bracelet from the customers. Memories surged from the depths of her mind, like a wave that had long been building toward the shore. Long ago, in her childhood, she had seen a similar pattern on a bracelet that belonged to her grandmother. It was an old family heirloom, passed down through generations, a symbol of trust and heritage. Her grandmother often said that these engraved signs held a special meaning. They told a story that needed to be understood. "If you ever find another bracelet with the same pattern, it will be a sign," her grandmother had said. And now, here it was, right before her eyes, in this luxurious boutique. The shop assistant's gaze remained fixed, her thoughts racing one after another. She remembered how, a few years ago, the store had acquired a rare collection of jewelry. Could this piece have been part of that purchase? Suddenly, her attention was drawn to a shadow near the door. Someone stood outside, peering in through the glass. The footballer. He hadn't left. The shop assistant was still standing by the display case, Despite the fact that there were few customers in the store, her gaze was fixed on the bracelet. Its pattern had taken hold of her thoughts. Why did it seem so familiar? She turned her head toward the doors. The footballer was outside. He wasn't in a hurry to leave. Something held his attention. Perhaps it was the same feeling that now gripped her. The footballer closed his eyes momentarily, trying to decipher the strange reaction he felt. He wasn't one to attach himself to material things, but this bracelet, it brought back memories of his childhood. He had grown up in a regular family. His mother was fond of simple things, but among her few treasures was a bracelet passed down through generations. As a child, he often held it in his small hands, studying its mysterious symbols. Over time, life had changed. He moved to the big city, dedicating himself to football, and the old memories dissolved into the routine of training and matches. Yet now, as he stood before the display, he couldn't shake the feeling that this bracelet was connected to his past. Inside the store, the shop assistant finally decided to act. She approached the display case and opened the glass compartment. Her fingers carefully touched the cold metal, making the engravings even clearer. She noticed a small inscription on the inner side of the bracelet. It was a row of letters, thinly etched. Her heart tightened. Those same symbols, she had seen them before, in her grandmother's old journal. She swiftly glanced toward the doors. The footballer was no longer standing there. He had entered the shop, his eyes now fixed on the bracelet in her hands. "This item has a story, doesn't it?" he said quietly. The shop assistant barely nodded. "A deeper one than it might seem." The mystery deepened. Their paths might have intersected far more intricately than either of them had realized. In the shop, a strange silence reigned. It wasn't awkward, it was more of an expectation, tension before the revelation of a mystery. The footballer and the shop assistant stood by the display case, their eyes fixed on the bracelet that seemed familiar to both, though each for their own reasons. "I've seen something like this before. Back in my childhood." The footballer's voice was soft and thoughtful. The assistant ran her fingers over the metal and nodded. "So have I. The pattern. I remember it from stories my grandmother used to tell. It's a symbol of trust and heritage." The footballer tilted his head slightly, as if recalling something significant. "My mother also had a bracelet with such ornamentation. But it disappeared." Those words hung in the air. The assistant took a deep breath. She realized that this wasn't just an ordinary conversation with a customer. It was something more. "This bracelet arrived here a few years ago, as part of a private collection. Maybe." She didn't finish her sentence, but both already felt they were on the brink of discovery. The footballer reached out toward the bracelet. He wasn't allowed to touch it, yet suddenly the assistant carefully handed him the item. He felt the cold of the metal. Its weight seemed familiar. "This bracelet has a story, and it's not over." The assistant nodded. "Perhaps it's finally found its rightful owner." The footballer's eyes scanned the engravings once again. There were letters, those same ones he remembered from his childhood. It was the same bracelet. The shop was now filled with soft light that flowed through the intricacy of chandeliers and glass. All the reflections seemed engulfing, echoing the opulence of the display cases and creating an atmosphere of suspense and mystery. The footballer stood in the middle of the hall, his gaze seemingly living into realities here and now, in a modern shop, and somewhere in the past, where this bracelet had already played its role. The bracelet in his hands felt unexpectedly heavy. He held it cautiously, as though it was too precious to merely examine. The ornament, illuminated under the light. The bracelet in his hands felt unexpectedly heavy. He held it cautiously, as though it was too precious to merely examine. The ornament, illuminated under the light, stirred a sense of déjà vu so powerful that the physical world around him seemed less real. The assistant couldn't tear her gaze away either. Her hands were clasped, her eyes following every move of the footballer, trying to read his thoughts. She understood well that this wasn't just a random encounter. The store's owner entered, a dignified older man with a strict demeanor. His perfectly tailored suit spoke of immaculate attention to aesthetics. But suspicion flickered across his face when he saw the bracelet in the footballer's hands. "That's a valuable item, young man. It's not intended for sale." His voice was cold but restrained. The assistant glanced at the owner, then back at the footballer. She felt that something important was happening here, something far beyond the usual transactions. The footballer turned his head, his gaze focusing on the boutique owner. "This bracelet holds meaning for me. I've seen a similar pattern many years ago. It was my mother's, but it disappeared when I was a child." The boutique owner frowned but didn't answer immediately. His eyes darted toward the assistant, as if seeking confirmation or contradiction. "You're talking about a family heirloom?" he finally asked, his tone less cold now. The $4 quietly nodded. "My mother said this bracelet symbolizes trust and heritage in our family. It's more than just metal. But I lost it and never saw it again." The assistant, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Her voice was soft yet confident. "There are letters engraved on the inner side of the bracelet. If this is truly your family's heirloom, they might hold meaning. Take a look." The footballer turned the bracelet over in his hands. The letters, finely etched in the metal, were exactly as he remembered. They matched the engraving on his old wristwatch, a watch he often wore because it was the only thing left from his mother. The assistant took a deep breath. "This truly belongs to you. It's returned to its rightful owner." The boutique owner raised an eyebrow, but genuine curiosity appeared on his face. With a gesture, he invited the assistant and the footballer to the store's back room, a space where records of all the jewelry in the collection were kept. The meeting was growing increasingly meaningful. They were on the verge of uncovering the truth, whether this treasure had truly returned to its rightful place after all these years.